going to call this meeting to order. Okay, it is 10 o'clock and Wednesday, May 13th. I'm calling this joint meeting between the Anchorage Advisory Committee and the MERF Advisory Committee to order. And at this point in time, I'd like to ask everyone to rise and please give the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. So welcome, everybody. This is a little bit of a change in venue. To start everything off, we're going to be share responsibilities. So initially, I would like the MERF members to please read for the record. They're here so we can establish a quorum, starting with Ed. Here. State your name, please. Turn your mic on.
Ed Rude, here.
Jennifer Rusk, present.
Todd Zaccanelli here.
Sharon Hagstrom, present.
Robert Howell, present.
And Dave Nussbaum, present.
All right, let's do the same thing for the Anchorage Advisory Committee, starting with
Thomas Hedrick, here.
Sam Lurie, here.
Ted Lawwell, here.
John Wesley Nash, present.
Chris Riedel King here.
Thank you, everyone. Now, we do have one member of the MERF committee that is here virtually. Okay, so with the MERF. Two in the waiting room. Wow.
Our mystery
Today, yes. Sign in, please.
We have to do, are you missing someone?
No, this is all we've got. We're too short, so.
You are too short.
Okay, so,
There's one member, but they're using their iPad, so it's two.
I see. It's, William Altoff is not here and is attending virtually for the MERF members. Do you agree to have Mr. Altoff attend the meeting virtually?
Somebody make a motion.
I make a motion, Mr. Altoff attend the meeting virtually.
I will second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Bill, you're in. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Nice that you get out of bed, Bill.
Okay.
Okay. With that, I will accept a motion to approve the agenda as written from anyone.
I so move.
Oh, Made and seconded to approve the agenda.
I have a comment, please.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, sir. I did not receive agenda, and all right, that was my mistake. It was distributed. I'm sorry. I do have one now. Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, with that, I am turning this over to Chris.
Okay, we have a couple of sets of minutes to approve. We have our March minutes. Has everybody had a chance to take a look at those?
Yes.
Okay,
Sam Lurie, I move that we approve the March minutes.
Ted Lawwell, second.
all right. All in favor of approving the minutes as presented?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, those minutes are approved. We also have the April meeting minutes. Has everybody had a chance to look at those?
Yes.
Sam Lurie, I motion to approve the April minutes with one change.
Okay, Sam, what do you got?
Roman numeral number 6, minor change. First sentence, reported that 20 vessels are anchored, and I'd like to change that to moored in the back, mooring field. That's the only change I
I
have.
would say anchored, because they're not on a mooring.
Oh, those were the ones, that's what
It's
I,
in the anchorage, so
Gotcha.
that is correct. They are anchored vessels, they're not moored vessels, they're not on a mooring ball or.
I'd like to
at a
move that we
dock.
accept the minutes for April 16th as published.
I'll second. Ted Law will.
Any further discussion on the minutes? Go ahead, John.
Yes, on page 3, there's a section that's labeled motion, and it shows me making the motion and seconding the motion, which I don't believe is correct.
Okay. So we'll need to look back at the actual, I don't know if I wrote that down. If I can find that, I will make that correction, but I guess we can go to the videotape.
Yeah, as Warner Wolf used to say, let's go to the videotape.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we will make that correction. Is there any other correction needed from the April minutes? All right, so we have a motion by Sam, a second by Ted. All in favor of approving with that correction? Say aye. Aye. All right, minutes approved, as amended.
Thank you, Chris. And for the MERF committee members, we have to approve the minutes from our April meeting. So at this point in time, I'll accept a motion to accept the minutes as published.
Before we approve these minutes, on page 3, it says that I had had talked about the pedestrian safety at Laguna Shores Crosswalk, but it says the north end. That should be the south end.
Okay, we can make that change.
Does that make that change, please?
Yep.
Thank you.
Any further corrections to the minutes?
No.
Okay, then I'll accept the motion to accept the corrected minutes as stated. Somebody's got to make a motion.
I wasn't here, so I'm not gonna do it.
Okay,
I'll second.
will you make the
I'll make
motion?
the motion.
Okay, Sharon made the motion. Todd, are you seconding?
Yeah, I am.
There we go.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay.
That's done. All right. Next on the agenda, public comment. I notice we have two people in the audience. Would either one wish to say anything at this point in time? Okay.
There's one more on the right.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hiding behind the chalkboard.
No, I should have mentioned Dan O'Leary, is that correct? So Dan is submitting an application to join the AAC, so he is here watching our proceedings.
Okay, welcome.
Welcome.
And welcome to the people in the audience. And with that, I will close public comment. And moving on to our current items, which is first on the list, is the ferry and water taxi, and I am turning that over to Chris Weber, or Chris King.
Well, you turn it over to Chris Weber.
Yeah, I
Chris
know.
Weber's not here, so that's.
He's
a
not
problem.
here.
Okay.
Bad slip.
All right, I'll do the first part of it here, and then I will go to the whiteboard because we have a whiteboard. Oh, okay, I have that mic too. Okay. So hopefully everybody printed this discussion draft and has had a chance to look at it. I am not going to go through the whole thing. I'm sorry, it was just distributed to the committee, so I apologize for that. It probably should have been made available to other people. Okay. But I'm going to go through kind of the specifics of it, and then we'll get to the gist of our discussion. So if you look at page 2, what the town manager has asked us to do is review any environmental, navigational, operational, and community impacts of perhaps having a water taxi, water ferry services, consider regulatory tools or frameworks the town may need, identify gaps in current town authority and opportunities for coordination with state and federal partners, provide recommendations to the town council on a governance approach that is proactive, protective, and adaptable. So this document really was put together to give you kind of the basics of what something might look like and also go through the things that already exist, because there really isn't that much that the town can necessarily control, but there are a few things, a few levers we could pull. So remember that our remit is not to determine the viability or the desirability of allowing these operations. It's to suggest what guardrails might be put in place proactively by the town to govern any operations deemed allowable. Curtis, you look like you might want to say something at this point? Nope. Going good? Okay. Okay, so I think our overall goal here is to figure out something that has low environmental impact with maximum positive community impact. And understand that we really have two different purviews that we're trying to cover off on. One is a water taxi service, which the primary use case might be transportation to and from vessels in the mooring field, the anchorage. It would alleviate the use of dinghies that are sometimes being left at the docks overnight, which is not allowable. And then there's the water ferry service. When we think about that, a primary use case likely would be transportation between the ends of Fort Myers Beach during season to avoid traffic on Estero Boulevard. And a secondary use might be transporting people onto Fort Myers Beach from designated off-island locations and back again. So some overarching concerns: speed, environmental protection, so we want to ensure the safety of our marine animals and ensure the protection of our waterways, waterway congestion, parking, and safe boating operation. So there's a whole bunch, if you turn to page 4, there's a whole bunch of federal, state, county, and local laws that already cover off on a bunch of things. We've already got coverage on speed and wake zones through FWC. We've got coverage on wildlife protection, FWC. We've got refuse, trash, waste disposal, also FWC. We've got operator qualifications and required licensing. That's federal through the Coast Guard. I'm not sure about emergency procedures and severe weather protocols. I'm guessing that's probably a Coast Guard thing as well, Curtis? Okay. And operators licensing. So business licensing would come through the county. And what I'm throwing out there is for the town's operating model would be a clear standardized permit for water taxi ferry operators, which would include environmental, navigational, and operational requirements. And there are really just a handful of things that I think fall into the gap that the town might want to consider having some guardrails about. But before I go to the whiteboard, any questions about what I've said so far? Jennifer?
So I spoke with many friends on the island and people on canals, residential canals, and it seems like people are okay with this idea of having a water taxi. I opposed it only because of my concerns with the environmental concerns and making sure that lighting but there were a lot of questions. And if I may I bring them up, or would you rather me bring up those questions towards the end?
Well, remember, we're not trying to decide whether or not this should be allowed. We're just trying to decide what guardrails should be put in place. So
Yes.
as we go through these, if you could probably frame your questions,
Okay.
to talk about guardrails and not about heck yes, heck no.
Yes. I guess then to start it off, my first question would be, is this something that the town wants to actually manage and permit?
My understanding would be yes, because the request came to these joint committees from the town manager to say, if this were allowable, what sort of things should we put in place? But I will let Curtis and Chad opine.
I would say that's the purview of council on whether or not we want to regulate that, and we'll give them our advice and let them decide whether or not, it's not really staff to say whether or not we want to regulate it.
Go ahead.
I do have a question kind of to bounce off that is, what's the big difference between this and any other just nature tour that's already out there? I mean, they already have regulations with all the different organizations. They already have this. Yes, they're going to be going dock to dock or boat to boat, but they already have to abide by a lot of laws and things. And if the city's not going to oversee it, I don't see a big difference. Are we thinking there will be?
So we regulate uses, so different properties are going to have uses associated with those properties, especially the commercial properties. And so we regulate those uses. Difference between a say, a tour that's already coming out of Pink Shell and not necessarily going anywhere else versus coming to Mountain House and then Snook Bite and then Fishtail Marina, we'd regulate the uses at those commercial facilities.
Gotcha.
So there's just differences in the nature of the operation, and therefore it might be regulated differently.
Okay, thank you. Yep, that was my big question.
Go ahead, Tom.
Maybe I missed it somewhere, but is this something that, it sounds like it's gonna be a private taxi service and/or ferry?
The town
Or
would
both?
not run
The
the
town's
operation.
not actually gonna be in
Correct.
possession of this taxi service or anything?
Correct, we're
Okay,
talking
okay,
about
okay.
outside
So
entities
outside
running.
vendors will be taking care of both services?
Correct.
So it's like the mooring field and stuff won't be anything to do with the town?
I'm real
As a
careful about
taxi thing.
speaking on behalf of the town. Neither Kurt or I are the town, so.
Okay.
I think that question is more geared towards, town council. They are,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
elected
absolutely.
representatives of the
Sure.
town. So we're not gonna really be able to speak to what the town wants to do or what the town is going to run or buy or et cetera.
We could
Again,
probably
again,
put up- oh.
the town has requested both committees to look at the possibility of the ferry service becoming a reality regardless of who's running it, town, outside, contract, whatever. And I think our job is to look at the guardrails as posed to us by the town manager.
But I'm thinking that if the town is operating this, that the guardrails could actually be a little tighter, as opposed to an outside organization where they're gonna probably be able to go state and federal regulations over what we're gonna try to put up for guardrails. That's all I was wondering. So depending on what avenue we're gonna
Yeah.
take, if the town's gonna run this operation, then we can have a lot narrower guidelines, as opposed to a private organization that says, nah, we're gonna run year round.
Yeah.
And we're like, well, no, it's only during, that kind of thing. So that's all, that's the only reason I asked the question.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter either way.
Right, and,
Right.
we don't know what.
But that kind of
that model's
directs our
going to be.
guide-
Well, I think we
guardrails.
could still look at the things that lie outside the existing federal, state, local,
Yeah.
county guidelines and say, okay, if we get to make a recommendation about these handful of things,
Mm-hmm.
here's what we would suggest.
Sure.
I think the focus needs to be on, or the expectations are outside entities coming in and running these businesses opposed to the town. I think that's where the focus needs to be.
Perfect, thank you.
Other comments or questions?
I do have a comment, Madam Chair.
Sure.
And this may, again, also be out of turn and maybe something that should be addressed when you're at the whiteboard. But on page 4, there's a statement that says, per operator qualification, taxi vessels would be a maximum of 6 passengers. I don't believe that is something we desire, nor something that we would want to make a specification for. Water taxis quite often, and every case that I'm aware of, are capable of more than 6 passengers, and there's a significant desire to have that happen. To me, a water taxi is a on-demand service that goes from not specific points, but to points that they are allowed to go to and others that they can go to. So the max of 6 passengers, I would like to say that that is not a proper statement. The other statement for note, simply for note, when you talked about weather, there are other water taxi services that have a water taxi rough water waiver that allows them to let the passengers know that they're okay with operating in that weather, although they want the passengers to agree that they're not, that they're doing it under their own safety.
Accepting liability.
Exacting liability and
Okay.
such. That's just for note. That, again, is something that the operator of the water taxi or of the ferry would, that'd be at their discretion. It's just a point of note. And the other thing is, in my definition, a water taxi, again, is an on-demand service that goes to where it's requested to go. A ferry service is a scheduled service that goes between designated points. and I'd like to make that clarification up front, so when we're talking about the two, we understand the difference.
Okay. And I would say that the information that I provided about capacity comes from Curtis, which comes from Coast Guard regulations based on the type of vessels that would likely be used for these types of services. So Curtis, if you want to give a little more
Yep.
color there.
Absolutely. So the reason why the taxi says six passengers, usually, I was thinking, as opposed to the ferry is gonna be a larger amount of people, right? So it's based off the licenses, the captain's licenses that is required. So if you are in a regular six-pack licensed captain, you cannot hold more than six people on your vessel. So I thought that fell more along the lines in the taxi service that we were talking about. Now the ferry, it goes off of the tonnage of the vessel and the passengers, right? So for the ferry service, it could either be a 25-ton licensed captain, 50-ton, or 100-ton. And that goes off the size of the vessel, and then it goes off of how many passengers they can do. So the ferry's going to hold a lot more number of people. So that license has to be a higher license. So for the taxi service, I don't think that we're going to be taking 50 people in a taxi because you got to think about it. The ferry's going to drop off at specific locations. The taxi service is more, we can talk what
Yeah.
the regulations are going to be, but it's kind of like on demand, right? So I think there has to be a limit of
so I think-
passengers for the taxi service.
John, your point is well taken in that, yes, it could potentially be a larger vessel for a taxi service, but then they would have to have the appropriate license.
And that's not our concern, that's
Exactly.
regulated by
Yep.
federal law.
Correct.
My point is that we've kind of made an indication in this document that the taxi service would be a maximum of 6 passengers. I don't believe we should put that restriction on it. My experience in the many different taxi services I've been involved with, seldom is it limited to 6 passengers. It's quite frankly desirable to have it more than that. And again, it comes down to what the operator proposes.
Yep. And so I can.
Can we just insert the word
Like-
generally?
Yes,
It,
yes.
the word, taxi
Likely.
vessels would generally
Yep.
be.
Sam, I hate to disagree with you, but I just think that's not a accurate statement.
Well, I would say the majority of the taxi services are 6-pack, but if somebody wants a 12-pack or a 12-passenger boat, the general water taxis across the country are six-pack boats, but they can be more.
Okay.
And again, that's not my experience. In the 12 or more taxi services that I've had personal interaction with, none of them have been a 6-pack. They've all been larger, and there's economical and environmental reasons and service reasons why that is desirable.
And there's no reason to have that limitation.
Okay.
If
That's my
properly
point.
licensed.
That's my point.
I agree.
I'm happy to revise that and say passenger limitations may vary based on the desire of the operators and the licensing that operator holds.
My proposal here is that the document should just indicate the difference between a taxi service, which is an on-demand service, and a ferry service, which is a scheduled service. It shouldn't get into any details associated with size of vessels, credential of vessels. That's something that's federally regulated, and size of vessel would probably be an issue that's taken up with the supplier or the contractor on a basis of when we get into those negotiations.
But I would throw out, would we want to recommend limitations on the number of passengers for either of those?
No, I don't believe we want to, simply because it will limit the amount of contractors that would want to respond on this or put them in a position where they may feel they don't qualify for economical reasons. And again, it's in a situation that's not common in general operation of taxi services. So again, I think we should totally eliminate anything in reference to the number of passengers. And again, define the difference between a taxi service and a ferry service As I stated, taxi service is on demand, ferry service is scheduled.
Okay. Tom?
Can I just throw this out there? John's got a good point, but if we want to put some guardrails on something, you don't want the Key West Express going up and down our river either. I don't want to look at that in my marina where I live. So if we can at least limit passengers, plus the size of six-pack, that type of boat, being able to maneuver in and out of the mooring field. Because those are the people that probably 99% of the time are going to be calling for it. So if we limit the size of the passengers, that would limit the size of the boats that we're getting up and down the river. Otherwise, you get something that, a dinner cruise that drafts 3 feet, they're going to fishtail.
Well, again, I think the discussion about the size of vessel is distinctively different from the qualifications of the vessel. That at this point, we're talking about the operational limitations, and those operational limitations shouldn't dictate or any way be connected to the amount of people the taxi service should be capable of carrying. I certainly agree with you that there should be recommendations and concerns about the size of vessels, but the size of vessels do not dictate the amount of people that the vessel can carry.
No, but economically, I'm not gonna put a dinner cruise boat there for 6 people. So
Well,
it
I
would
understand.
basically limit it.
I
But I don't
understand.
know if there's any way we can limit what they come in. Could that be part of the permitting process? Just outside of having these.
Anyone from this end of the table have any comments on this part of the discussion?
I just have one, and I think economics, number one, are going to dictate the size of the craft. You know, as pointed out, nobody's going to take a 50-person boat down for 6 people running a ferry service. It's just not gonna happen. Secondly, I think the town council should be looking at what size they want to have running up and down and what they want to do as far as looking at what type of boat license and what the size of the boats. I think for us, we can determine the guardrails saying this is a point that you should look at, size of boat, capacity per boat, and the license involved in running it, as part of looking at, you know, writing an ordinance. Because we all have different opinions on how big is too big coming down a canal, or how small is too small coming into a marina. And I think the economics will dictate the size of the boat in the craft, and we should just point out to the town council, this is an area of concern, and we suggest that you look at boat size, capacity for a ferry and for a taxi service. And I agree with the definition from the gentleman to my right.
John.
As far as we should outline a description of what we feel a ferry service and a taxi service is. And I think he did an outstanding job defining that. That's my 2 cents.
And I agree with you totally. I'm just trying to make the point that the amount of people in the vessel is immaterial. What's important is the size of vessel
Okay.
and where the vessel operates.
Rob, did you have something? No. Okay. Curtis, do you want to talk just briefly maybe about a likely, sort of a max size for maneuverability within the mooring field? Because I think Tom made a good point about that.
So I think from our understanding, or my understanding, from talking with management for the town and everything like that. So our understanding is we thought that the taxi service would be a smaller vessel to be able to maneuver properly down the canals within the mooring field, that kind of thing. And then the ferry is your bigger operation. So I think the idea was to have smaller vessels operate for the taxi service rather than, You know what I mean? I mean, we're not
Rather
gonna
than a
have,
pontoon.
I mean, we're thinking a taxi service, like, think of the vessel that runs out of Salty Sam's Marina, the Sightseer. It's a pontoon boat, with big 300 engines. It's about, 40 to 50 foot long. It's gonna be very hard being able to operate down the canals. And say if a vessel that size, I mean, I know you stated, it doesn't matter, but that's a different, that operator has to have a higher license to operate. So I think it kind of goes in with what Dave said, the economics and stuff like that. So I think the taxi services should be and probably will be smaller vessels.
And give me a foot size.
And that's just my opinion. So I'm saying anywhere from 18 foot to probably 25 foot would be, we could probably stretch that, maybe 30 max, is kind of my idea of kind of my thinking in my mind. I mean,
I have a question.
that's my opinion.
Sure.
Is there, so you said previously there seems to be a want from people in the mooring field for a service? Or is that the city's want to get some of those boats off of the dock for overnight
I think
sitting?
it's both.
Both, okay.
Both.
And then the other question is, anyone on council or anyone, how much of a demand for either of these types of services are we hearing? I hear it a lot potentially for the parking lots that are like over by Doc Ford's to come over to like Times Square, or the one that's by Diversified to come over. So I hear like a want for something like that to avoid the beach traffic over the bridge. But as far as up and down, I'm just curious, what are we hearing?
And
Like how much of a demand really is there for one versus the other?
Yeah, and I think, again, our remit is not to figure out whether it's desirable, whether it's, in the next month or so. We were asked to come up with guidelines, should it become a reality.
Right, well-
And I do think that we have heard, and we know that there was a
Yeah.
ferry service prior to Ian that existed, and there's nothing now.
Well, my follow-up to that was once we established if there is a want for it, it's then,
Yes.
depending on how much of a want, that might determine how we should regulate the size of the boats.
Exactly.
Because I don't see it for a big boat in any way, shape, or form. Like those the six-pack pontoons that are, 20 feet?
Correct.
At most, like, I think,
In regards to taxi services that existed, I've spoken with people that actually started taxi services 30 years ago here on Fort Myers Beach, and it wasn't sustainable. Even in the season, it wasn't sustainable financially. And so I wonder, how far do we take this permitting? Does permitting this type of business mean that we enforce the guidelines and the guardrails that you are all speaking of? I'm just curious.
So I'm hearing a lot of questions with regards to regulatory permitting, what will be allowed, and I mean, Curtis and I are not going to be able to answer these questions. So I would just encourage, we have open-ended questions. Again, to Ms. Chris's point, we're concerned about size, we're concerned about A, B, C, and D, and these are the guardrails that were our concerns and our suggestions, and keep it at that. But we're not going to be able to answer regulatory.
Totally understandable. That's why I'm, I would hate for the town to waste the resources of the town staff. If we're permitting, that's great, but if you permit something, you have to enforce the permit. And if the town can't enforce a permit, then it should maybe fall back onto the Coast Guard and FWC to take care of any regulations.
It seems we're getting off in the weeds a little bit here.
Yeah.
As far as the regulations, as it was discussed earlier, the operators, whether it's a ferry or a taxi, they're going to have to fall under all of the federal, state, and local guidelines. We don't necessarily need town guidelines. They can operate under guidelines, regulations that are already in place. And as far as a permit, enforcing a permit, if we don't have any regulations that are any different than the federal, state, and local regulations, then we don't have to police it.
So-
These other organizations are already going to be policing it. And then as far as the size of the boats or the number of passengers, this is a free enterprise thing. It's going to wind up determining itself, and whether it winds up being economically viable or not, it shouldn't matter to us or the town itself,
The point that I
because
was
the
trying to
town's
get
not going to
to-
be operating them.
The point that I was trying to get to with my initial question about demand, so was to get an answer for town council, because a lot of these things are already going to be regulated just by being a vessel on the water.
Right.
So the type of thing that the town, I feel, could regulate is just, and this is why I was trying to build to that. I didn't mean to get us off into the weeds, but it's how many of these companies would be allowed. We could
There we
regulate
go.
that.
Let's-
So getting,
But
getting to that point
Yes,
is
right.
what you're doing. because if
Demand
there's-
is already going to dictate how many.
Well,
But that's my point. So, and that would be why we would recommend, well, I don't think there's a big demand for people going back and forth. So maybe one boat gets a permit through the city to go from Little San Carlos to Estero. And then, okay, but there's a bigger demand to go from Bowditch to Matanzas Pass. So then there'd be a, you know, you see where I'm
Yes,
going with
right.
that?
So
Yeah,
let's-
but you're-
That's what I was trying to get
Yeah,
to.
but it won't work that way, because you're not going to know what the demand is until the service starts operating.
and so you may need to revisit.
Right, but that's where, but I think we start at a base, we're saying, we're gonna allow it potentially for one group.
Which I direct your attention
is
to the
why I was trying-
whiteboard.
yeah.
So if, those are the 6 things that I think we actually could have a recommendation on. So it's the number of licenses or permits for either of those services. An operating fee, I don't know that we really will have, I don't know what other operating fees would be comparable. Insurance and liability minimums, some of that will be dictated, I think, by virtue of being a captain and having to have certain liabilities, but we might have some other thresholds to consider. The hours or months of operation, noise, loud music restrictions, and designated docking and passenger parking. I think in my, in my purview, I think those are the things that are gaps that aren't covered by the other things. So if we
Correct.
could at least have sort of a leading statement about how we would like that to be applied, I think that would be helpful. Does that make sense to people?
I agree, especially with the insurance. That's something that we should set limits on.
Okay. So, number of licenses or permits for either service. We're sort of leaning toward the 1 to 2 minimal.
Again, I think from a pure taxi standpoint, I envision something similar to somebody registering an Uber-type taxi system where someone is downtown, lives on the south end, says, boy, can you come over and pick me up at, under the bridge or whatever. I'd like to go home. Here's my $20. Take me to the south end, and dial up, and there's a boat there, takes them down. That's a taxi service versus a ferry service, which is operating kind of like the trolley. And you can say, okay, we're going to be done dining at 9 o'clock, listen to music, but we want to be under the bridge because the 10 o'clock ferry is going to be there, and that's the last run of the night, going south to drop everyone off. So that's what I envision. Now, as far as the ferry service, yes, I think we could limit the number of licenses. As far as a taxi service, I don't envision people doing it because some guy may want to do it 1 night a week, some lady may want to do it 7 nights a week, and everything in between. And again, I'm an econ guy. Supply and demand will find the sweet spot on the golf course.
I think Dave's exactly right. I don't think there should be an actual limit, even on the permitting part. I'm telling you, if the town's open to doing this, and they're open to moving forward with this idea, and they decide, they come to a point where they could actually issue a permit, it's a free market. the people that want to try it will come and get a permit. And in a short period of time, the ones that can't do it or can't make money, they won't be doing it. The ones that can, and then they can make money, that have a better business plan or have figured it out better, they'll continue to do it, and it will only grow or survive based on the interest of the public that's using it. And so it will very quickly reach an equilibrium and work from there, whether it works up or whether it doesn't work and works down. All that, I don't think the town needs to be figuring out any of that stuff. I think we need to be looking at the restrictions of to protect our shorelines and our environment, the wakes and the manatees and the speeds, and those are the things that I'm not sure are under federal and state guidelines. They are.
The wake zones, all of
Speed
that
and
stuff
wake
is
zone?
totally
Okay.
mapped out,
All
yeah.
right. Those are the things that we need to make sure that are being enforced, and whoever's doing this.
If we
Well-
create, here's where it all is, the speed zones. If we create, though, without regulations, that type of environment, I mean, taxis work by how many fares they get, and if they're racing each other, if they're speeding each other, if there's no regulations, at least initially, you're right, it'll be like survival of the fittest. Eventually, it'll even out, and then they'll have just a few.
Yeah, no,
But at
our
the
job-
beginning,
yeah, our job-
we could be creating a perfect storm of companies trying to outcompete each other and trying to speed, trying to beat each other to different fares.
But don't we have Coast Guard here? Don't we have people that?
Enforcement is the issue. We have the best environmental laws in the country in Florida, but zero to no enforcement. We really do.
Well, enforcement is nothing
That's
the
what we
town
need to be
can
looking into.
Unless you're in key, yeah, certain areas.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I think that needs to be our major concern. That should be the priority in this thing.
I believe charter captains are already operating taxi services legally.
So,
I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
They are on demand, they're being hired, they're licensed, they have occupational license. They may not be as publicized. When I was chartering, I provided taxi services occasionally. A lot of fishing charter boats do it. As long as they have proper bases to dock at, I think they're already operating as taxis on demand where and when people want them.
And do they need to be permitted from the town?
I'm sorry, I don't,
These are all licensed.
are you
These people
recognized
are-
on the floor?
Yeah.
I think
Hang
I'm
on, hang on,
recognized on the
Jen.
floor?
There, go
Thank
ahead,
you.
John. Okay.
I agree 100% with what you're saying, Ed. Town's responsibility is to determine landing positionings or proper places to land and the size of vessels in certain zones. As far as what speed they can operate at, what conditions they can operate under, what their impact is under sea life. That is all state, federal, already regulated. I think the purpose of this committee is to determine size limitations and where they can land. Rest of it, you're 100% right, is going to be determined by the people that choose to apply to do this permit.
Before I get to you, Jennifer, I just want to say I really liked how you framed things. Dave's talking about a taxi service as being an Uber. So is there a registration for those people who want to do that? And they'll either make money or they won't, and then, their registration lapses. And maybe it's more of a, a permit for the ferry operation, which we think will probably be a limited interest because, there's only so much and so much time. But go ahead, Jennifer.
I was just referring to what you were saying about that there's these fishing boats and other people that are providing the service. Are they permitted through the town to do that, or is there something that you actually have to get a permit to be a taxi service? Does it go out of the scope of actually being a fishing charter, things like that?
Yeah, who knows the answer to that one?
Yeah, again, let's have these questions and we can bring them to legal and see what, I just don't want to give answers that I'm not fully knowledgeable on. And
Yeah, that's why I'm asking.
So people who rent watercraft, on the beach. I'm assuming that they have to have some sort of a permit to be able to operate in that way from the town, is that correct?
Yes.
Well, I believe any business in the town needs to have a permit. I don't know if Chad,
Need an
you can support that or
occupational
not.
license and a commercial or acceptable location.
Exactly.
And with that, when you do a charter, you have to submit your active captain's license.
Yes.
And that's it. So people are already legally probably doing taxis.
So you get a permit through the town and you have to provide that information, your license and things to the town, correct?
No, it's simply limited to commercial operations. It's not, you don't submit your license. That's all under federal and state regulations. It's not something the town should enforce or could enforce.
Thank you.
Okay.
They do
yeah.
enforce the occupational license part of it, just like any other business.
So we have questions as to what actual permits might be required. But I think the two things that we have sort of come to consensus on are that we would want to enforce size of vessel operating, especially within the mooring field and the anchorage areas, to be between 18 and 30 feet, yes?
And especially draft.
And especially
Going
draft,
through the,
right?
Chad and Curtis can give you updates on like an acceptable draft. Everything now is pretty much Corinthian catamarans that draw, I don't know, probably less than 3 feet of water, and they can tell you exactly what the limits would be, especially during the winter time.
Could I make maybe a suggestion? So some of these things we just can't regulate. They're either already regulated or.
Right,
or-
exactly.
So, in lieu of an operating fee, because I feel like that would be hard to get into.
Yes, I think
Could we
so.
have something where whoever wants to operate this, they would go through Fort Myers Beach, and it could be like some type of online course where it's like Fort Myers Beach certified taxi, Fort Myers Beach certified, so it's not a legal thing. It's kind of like the Dolphin Smart programs that certain groups go through. It's not a license. It's nothing other than a bragging right to say, I went through the proper training. I follow these standards that are higher than this other person who just has a boat. So it might be a way of not necessarily enforcing and putting more weight on whoever would be enforcing some
But
of
an
these.
educational
But it would be
requirement?
an educational type of if it could be a required, that'd be great.
Yeah.
But something where they could just brag about it, where we can say on the website, these are the taxi services we endorse. These are the ones that have gone through our program, and maybe a little to that. Because it's like you said, before, we're getting in the weeds on things that we would like it to be, and a lot of speculation, where at the end of the day, we like there's already laws about noise and that, and certain hours of operations and things like that, other places. So maybe just having a Fort Myers Beach certified taxi, Fort Myers, So
Rob, the only thing I would be concerned with, as a taxpayer, is liability. When the town endorses something like that, I would think that if there's something that goes awry, then
Yeah,
that
that's
would
what I
fall
meant.
onto
That's what
liability. I don't
addendums are
know.
for and
I don't know.
changing. and-
Yeah.
I know I hear what you're saying though, 'cause
Yeah.
it could lead us open, but if we wrote in some type of contract that, there's ways around it. I hate to say it like that, but I'm not the legal guy.
We have a town website, I believe, that has private parking as well as town parking for parking spaces that shows spaces available. And I don't see why we couldn't have a taxi service, water taxi service website, and the people that go on the website that can advertise on it could literally have to go through, prove their insurance, pick a number, say they have to have a $3 million insurance. They've completed the, taxi certification course for the town. They've read through all of the rules, regulations, and then they can post on the town's website, water taxi website. We don't say anything other than these people have completed it, they paid their operating fee, and they've completed the town course, and they're available. And you get 20 operators. It's on your phone, boom, 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 where do you want? Pick me up here. Here's a picture of your driver, and you know, meet you underneath the bridge.
So that's for the taxi,
Correct.
okay.
And for-
Yes.
and one more thing, and for the ferries, you know, for the charter boats, there are some canals that can handle a 50-foot
Yeah,
pontoon boat, and some that cannot, and I think leaving it up to the discretion of the captain of the boat is why he's captain of the boat.
for a taxi or for a ferry?
For a taxi carrying large people,
Or a large number of people?
or a
Not
large
just
number,
large people?
a large number of people.
We need a
So,
bigger
because,
boat.
you know, we have a keyhole channel on ours, and we brought 50-foot boats in that carried 49 people. They can turn around, drive all the way out. It's deep enough. We're one of the few, but we've got that option at the end of our canal. And there are other canals that can do the same thing. So we have to be careful as to how tight we make the restrictions on it.
Yes, Councilor McLean.
Yeah, John McLean. So I was, do I have to hold it closer? Okay. Yes, I do. So I think the types of things, number one, the town does provide licenses for things like personal watercraft rentals, parasailing, things like that. And they also have guidelines of how many or how densely situated they can be. In other words, I'm just looking at the ordinances here. They include things like restricted speed in slow zones and things like that. I'm not sure if it's appropriate or if it's over-ordinanced, but that's what's existing for regulating water-based businesses in the town now. And it talks about both limiting the number, in other words, if you're doing parasailing, you have to be at least 500 feet away from the next parasail operator. You have to have a land-based office with a telephone that you can be contacted at, so that if there are complaints, et cetera, that there is a method to reach these businesses. And so I would start thinking around, how do we want these businesses to operate, not the maritime marine regulations that captains are going to have to do, but how do we want to either control, limit, or open up the businesses, and what types of, when I say guidelines, it's, we don't want them operating in the environmentally critical zones. That's like, boom. I think that would be a pretty easy one, but it would be more those types of things. I hope that helps guide you a little bit.
And just to clarify, Dave, a quick perusal of the town website under the parking issue is just about town parking.
Oh, okay.
So to Jennifer's point, I don't think the town wants to get into endorsing certain businesses, whether they do them all or not. That's just something I don't think we'd want to do.
I have a question for the town councilman. Vice Mayor Adderholt negotiated on the arches. He negotiated a ferry terminal with the total bailout if it's not profitable. They don't have a shovel in the ground. They don't even have a shovel on the property. And this whole thing is kind of predicated on that terminal. I don't believe they segregated parking for it. The other location in Junkanoo, there's not enough, or that marina there, Snookbite, there's not enough parking now there. I don't know how you could possibly segregate parking. How are we going to deal with that? And what's the status on the arches? Because we did agree to something for a terminal there.
Good question. I don't have an answer for you, Sam. I don't, Jim was involved in that, so it only came as far as it came. So I think, again, it's open-ended as how they want to run it, but that's just one of the destinations.
My suggestion is if you do a terminal there has got to be some, I know most people are going to try to walk, but there's got to be some kind of segregated parking added to their project if this is included.
Thanks.
Tom?
So to just circle back to the beginning of this thing and what we're supposed to be doing, there's 6 named towns within Florida and 2 outside. What have they done as far as what we're trying to do, guardrails? We're trying to reinvent the wheel. They've already done this, and a lot of these are established. Nantucket, Massachusetts has been doing it forever. What have they done for the town, for the things that we're trying to do right here, as opposed to whether we like it or don't like it, or how many boats and this and that? That's got to do with the town council, and what did they do that, for the environmental side of it? Has anybody, I mean, we named them, is there any information on that, or that has
I have
been
not-
earth-shattering, that we said, wow, we should do something,
I
make
have
sure we
not.
have this in there?
No, but
or-
I was definitely gonna suggest that we look into what other, water communities are doing.
Well, they're listed here, the comparative towns, so, and they're Florida, and there's a
They're
couple
gar-
outside of it, and I know there's many, many more. But what have they done that is earth-shattering? If anybody even knows, if not, then something for.
No, I can dig
If we
into that.
table this whole deal and we
Yeah.
do it down the road and get some of these kind of answers, and whether council, as far as limiting boat sizes, things like that, if those are answers that, after they have a meeting, they can figure that out, and
Well, I think what I can do is I can sort of round up all of the things that we've talked about and say, okay, here's kind of where we're leaning, here are the ideas we're thinking about. I'm happy to do a little bit more information or, info gathering on those Florida towns to see if they have set specific regulations for the town for our, perusal. And, I don't know if it'll take another joint meeting to just sort of go over that and say, hey, and at the end of the day, we think that these are 3 or 4 things we want to recommend. Curtis, what do you think?
I just want to state that we are aware of, and we have, know that there are other municipalities that have taxi service and stuff like that. So just remember, this is just one piece to the puzzle for the town and town council to figure out. So we want to get y'all's opinions and guidelines, but we also know that we have back-end work to do to look into these other businesses. So we are aware of it, and it's something that we are looking into as well, and to get with those municipalities and understand how they operate and everything.
So I think what you're saying is, hey, you guys don't need to go and dig really much more deeply, but perhaps stay at the surface, and it's these things that we're concerned about. We're definitely concerned about enforcement of the regulations that already exist. Of course, we want to make sure that there is very little, if no impact to our environmental waterways, our animals, all of that sort of thing. So maybe with that sort of frame in mind, I will create, a very simple document and say, hey, here are the things that we're concerned about, and things that, it might be up to town council and legal to decide, but when you put together an ordinance, you might want to consider what's already existing for these water recreational organizations that have been allowed to operate. You don't want to create something that's totally different from what you already have, or you might need to take another look at those and bring things together. Oh, yes, Councilor King.
Yes, thank you, Chair King.
Okay.
Tom, you make a great point. Let's not, for lack of a better term, reinvent the wheel, but let's look at best practices from those entities, and then also try to figure out what might be unique to Fort Myers Beach.
Right. So I think, if we can come up with, here are our major concerns, and if we were you, we would have you dig into this, but then count on staff to really do the digging to find the best practices to bring something to life. I think that's what I'm hearing from people.
I think if I can give you because we had a meeting prior to this discussing it, and I think the number one topic, the number one concern that we all came out in unison on our meeting was speed. We said speed is the number one concern that we have on both the ferries and the taxis for a number of things. It hurts the environment, the grasses, the shores, and it's also dangerous.
My boat in my marina.
Yeah, your boat, your marina,
You're
everything.
100% right, and I think that the town should really be sitting down with FWC and even the Coast Guard and start enforcing the regulations that are on the river. I can't tell you, myself and a spectator here, Dan O'Leary, we live full-time in a marina on the outside dock, and I can't tell you how, he's got a bullhorn that he has to tell people to please slow down. It couldn't be marked any better around Snookbite Marina, and it doesn't matter.
It's currently regulated.
And it's not your renters. They're actually, for the most part, respectful. It's residents down here. And it's outrageous, the comments that we get when we ask them, please slow down, it's a no wake zone. I got a 50-foot boat that's slamming against the dock, and all the rentals and stuff that are there. And so, I mean, we need to get more enforcement. We have an FWC boat that sits at our marina, and it just sits there. Doesn't move at all. And it's outrageous to me that, and when it does move, it's gone, it disappears. And we never see it. And I've never really seen an enforcement up and down the river. So I'd like to have the town at least start putting that as a priority, and that will take care of that problem that you're worried about. And
It's currently
I couldn't agree
regulated.
more. The whole thing boils down to enforcement. The regulations are already there. Everything is in place. There's nothing needs to be added. They just need to be enforced. And if you're going to increase the boat traffic, commercial boat traffic, you just need to make sure that they follow the rules and the regulations. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is through having somebody enforcing it. And so the key to this is, from what I'm seeing or from what I have read through this stuff, the key, the concern of the town, somehow, the town needs to get with the Coast Guard, and they need to, if we don't have enough here, if there aren't enough Coast Guard boats here, maybe we need a couple more.
what's the Sheriff's Department and the FWC? I mean,
Yeah,
Lee County needs to start stepping up to this
and those
area, too.
aren't town-funded things. It doesn't cost the town any more money. It costs the state and it costs the county.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's a need for more enforcement, then pressure needs to be put on the county and the state to have a little more enforcement, more people to enforce those regulations.
Mm-hmm.
And that's key to this whole thing. I don't know how, Rob would know more than I do. There were like almost 100 manatees that died this past winter, and the majority of them were from the cold. But I was astonished. There was like 30 of them.
We're breaking records already.
That were killed by boat strikes.
We pulled one out yesterday, and this was going to be a members item, but we're on it if that's okay with everybody.
Sure.
It's essentially, it is. My members item was going to be asking you guys, please get the mayor to start reaching out, because the law enforcement that I see, please correct me if I'm wrong, law enforcement that I see enforcing the speeds is the sheriff. FWC enforces when they're breaking environmental laws, but none of them work together. Coast Guard is off doing stuff off the coast. FWC is if you are like over seagrass beds, or they're monitoring fishing and things like that. They can enforce the speeds, but the sheriff is the one that I see once in a while. But I was going to ask if we can get the mayor to please reach out to the sheriff's department, because they're the ones we need more north, south, and middle of the island, like just a constant patrol, because it's out of hand. The manatee we pulled out yesterday, she made it up to Tampa, but she's probably not going to make it. Like it just like I'm sick and I'm getting emotional, but I'm tired of seeing the other side of this. And when I'm on my kayak tours, like I try my best, and it's the people that are renting the boats that aren't educated the best. But as soon as you approach them and tell them, this is slow speed, this is manatee zone, they're right away, I'm so sorry I didn't know. But that I didn't know was a problem and a fault of the rental companies.
Right.
The locals, though, are the ones. So if we're going to get, more businesses and more things doing this, we got to step up. And I really think more enforcement will solve a lot of the problems on that board and a lot of our worries and issues. And it's not on the city, other than the mayor has pull because he's the mayor. You guys have pull because you know the mayor. You know what I mean? It's just that. So I'm begging you guys, like I'm sick of pulling out animals.
Yeah, I mean, the speed thing has been something that numerous people have brought to our attention, and it's, something that we're very concerned about, and that's why that lovely map exists. It's a way of educating, and I do think that it is about education for all the rental companies, for everybody, and so we'll keep working on that. But I
Chris?
kind of want to
regulations are in place. We have thin resources, so what we can do as a committee and everybody can do is, a lot of this is complaint-driven. Everyone has a phone with video, and if you can zoom in on FL numbers and you know, I don't know why that's funny. But that's, you know, that's the
Problem
way
is,
that.
by the time you
that the
call, they're gone. The
That's
votes are
okay.
gone.
You have FL numbers and you have a video of them flying down, throwing a wake. That's a start to enforcement, is complaint-driven complaints.
So before I sort of close this, because I think we've talked about a lot of these things, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put, like I said, a document together that really summarizes our concerns and our recommendations. It's not really some firm recommendations, but I think it might be enough to provide guidance to the council. But before I close it up, Bill, do you have anything you want to add to the conversation? You know, I'm putting you on the spot. Oh, yeah, okay.
Is that Bill me?
Yes, Bill, you, yes. Anything?
Yeah, when you're talking about other municipalities that are close, has anybody been down to Naples and taken the water taxi down there? It's called a water taxi, but it operates as, I want to use the proper term, it's not the water taxi, it's the...
Ferry?
Ferry.
Okay.
It's a circular route, which is different than what we're talking about for a ferry service on Fort Myers Beach. But it had 6 distinct stops. You know, if it doesn't matter which stop you're on, they'll be back an hour later. So the restaurants know it, the bars know it, the hotel knew. You know, if you showed up and said, hey, I'd like to have lunch here, but I'd like to be back on the ferry in an hour, they paid attention to that.
Okay.
So that was pretty good. Now, how we differ, you know, we are more in a straight line. And I think one of the areas that I think the town has to focus on is coming up with an agreement with available docks, right? Or whether it's a marina or whatever the right term is for that. But I think one of the major goals is to take the traffic off of Estero Boulevard during prime time and move it off to a more enjoyable route. But to do that, then you need the available parking.
Right.
Okay, that's to me is key. And if you look from the south side heading north, you know, you got big complexes down there off of Bay Beach Road. Waterside's a big one. I think they have all of them have marinas down there, or
Yep.
docks.
Yep.
And then you move up, and I think the town would behoove to get an agreement with a marina or a dockage that can have parking. You'll have a restaurant or two or a bar or two that they can enjoy the wait. But Naples has a pretty good setup down there. It's a lot smaller in scale because it's not, what are we, 4 or 5 miles from north to south?
7.
Yeah, I mean,
Ish.
I've never made it all the way up because of
Okay.
all the traffic during the prime time. So it's only 4 miles and a turnaround.
All right. Thanks,
Yeah,
Bill.
May I?
Yes.
The average to go from one end of the island to the south, the north to the south, takes roughly about 45 minutes to an hour.
By boat, Jennifer? Okay. Okay. Using the appropriate speed.
And being careful, this isn't the intercoastal highway. This is, you know, sensitive estuaries that we have to, you know, be careful of.
Okay.
Okay. I just want to say, Todd, Sharon, do you have anything that you want to add? Okay, I just want to make sure we heard from everybody. Ted? Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, very much for all of your input on this. I will wrap something up, get it back to you for your consideration, and then Dave and I will talk about how we make those recommendations formally to council.
Yep. Okay. Moving on to the second item on our agenda, and again, this was requested by our town manager to take a look at this. This was in response to a complaint that came from a condominium on the south end of the island. They had a substantial amount of algae that had accumulated, and by algae, I'm talking about the seaweed. I'm not sure exactly what the correct term is for it.
Sargassum?
Algae's fine.
What? Algicide?
Algae is fine.
Algae's fine. I mean, it could
It's
be
different.
sargassum, it could be red drift algae.
I
you know,
call it
it's a-
sargassum, but, you know,
Sure, algae's fine.
okay, algae's fine. And I went down and took a look at it after getting the email from the town manager, and apparently what has happened after Ian is there's been a pool that is formed, a tidal pool that is formed that has water going in and out with the tides. Algae is coming in and not coming out of the tidal pool. And as the rainwater and the tides and the king tides aren't there, it's getting stuck in there and slowly starting to decompose and has a very obnoxious smell. And I'm talking to the president of the condo there, and he and I spent probably a good hour and a half looking at it. I said I would bring it up at our meeting and find out exactly what our town policy is for removal of algae, and if it's even in the town's purview to do this, because it's also right next to the shorebird nesting area, and there is a gazillion shorebirds that are all flocked around the tidal pool, which I explained to him probably negates anything that he would even remotely wish to have happen to it. But I wanted to bring that up, explain it, and now I'm turning it over to our environmental Dr. Chad.
Whoa, all right. Chad Schutz for the record, it's town staff. So we have an algal accumulation policy for the town. It's been in place for a while. It was based on the Sanibel policy, just kind of begged, borrowed, and stole from that. It reads that, you know, in order for the town to go out and remove algae, it needs to be, you know, around, you know, if it's 30 feet wide, around a foot on average in depth, and about a quarter of a mile or 1,000 feet in length to justify going to collect it. That's more or less how we've been operating, and that does very much happen whenever we have these tropical storms. We had a pretty quiet hurricane season, thank God, for last summer. And maybe, you know, the grass didn't get mowed, and these winter storms have kind of been bringing it in intermittently with every winter storm that we have. And a lot of the old timers have been educating me that they've never seen it like this before during the winter period. We certainly get it every summer that I've been here, but you know, now that it's here during the people season, we get a little bit more attention to it from our visitors and residents. So, and I don't want to necessarily just focus in on that on the 8,000 block. That is a special case, and I'd like to get some direction from y'all on that, but also just as a general, you know, beach management policy. You know, we have limited resources. TDC does give us money for cleaning this up. We are a tourist beach, and you know, our socioeconomics are very much tied to our visitors' pleasure while they're visiting our beach, and not everybody finds you know, wading through algae or stepping over algae or smelling algae enjoyable. So staff is very much sensitive to that, and we're also sensitive to the delicate balance with our environment and making sure our shorebirds and wildlife have that rack line to forage and do their thing in. So I guess what I'm looking for is some guidance from each of the committee members, and maybe a consensus as to how we want to proceed. I can give you my 2 cents before or after, whichever y'all prefer.
Prefer before.
Okay, so my,
And then after, see if we change it.
Yeah.
sure. So, my 2 cents is this is primarily let it be complaint driven. I guess there may need to be a threshold of is it just one complaint? Maybe it's the same person, maybe it's not the same person, but is it just is that threshold just one or whatever? Generally, we do get a complaint, we will go out and look at it no matter what, even if it's one or many. But is there a complaint threshold that we want to consider? And then is there a physical threshold? And I generally, I'm generally more responsive to algal complaints downtown in our tourist district, so to speak. But having said that, Fort Myers Beach is kind of like one big tourist district with all the rentals, houses that we have renting, condos that we have renting. Everybody has a vested interest, and ignoring one section of the beach, that single-family home has their business, so to speak, right there that we can't necessarily ignore. So, again, do we give preferences to locations? So, is that something that we should consider? And then just kind of the general state of affairs. If it's smelly, slippery, maybe representing a viable trip hazard, just the physical nature of it, is there any kind of threshold there where the amount of it, necessitates, or is it, Chad, use your best judgment and, with available resources? Because, even if TDC is paying for it, that doesn't mean we necessarily have staff available, 24/7 to coordinate and facilitate the pickup of the algae. So, I guess I'll leave it there for your feedback.
Make one comment?
Sure.
I would just like to say thank you for telling us what the current sort of status is, that there actually is a standard that in order to remove it, it's got to be a foot average in depth, a 1/4 mile in length, and 30 feet wide. That is really helpful because that allows us to sort of educate people on, hey, you haven't seen where some of this algae really is, so in comparison, yours might not be quite as bad as other places. Not that we all love the algae, but I think that's a helpful, at least, guideline as
Yes.
to when you start to get involved.
And as I've come to discover, if you make that threshold too low, this becomes a daily exercise. I mean, so, and once you do it once, you set that expectation that you're going to be out there. Let me just also go through, we have an FDP permit. We're not just allowed to do that because we're a government and we can go do anything we want. We have to go and ask the state permission and get their authorization. And when we went back this past year to address the issues, the state issued a permit, and it was language that I hadn't had before, and not necessarily that I didn't agree with it, but the language was, disperse the algae at the tidal line where it's been accumulated, and if it's still there after 4 tidal cycles, then you can collect it. So that's kind of been the guiding principle. And another thing about this algae is it's kind of here today, gone tomorrow, and as soon as you think it's gone, then it proves you wrong and it's back again. So you're constantly chasing it. It's generally coming up in these cold fronts that we're seeing, and the next day the wind shifts or it's covered up with sand, and it's not as big of an issue. So sometimes Mother Nature even gets to it before you can even get to it. And if you do go and collect it all and leave it in a dumpster, and you have a contractor that isn't as responsive as the neighbors would like, you're getting complaints on the smelly dumpster of algae that's right next to their rental that they require.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Chad. Okay.
I just want to add
would-
this too. Correct me if I'm wrong, though, but isn't this algae signs of a healthy ecosystem as well?
Yeah, I mean, we're very we're in a very productive area. Estuaries are very productive, and that is a important food source for the wildlife that lives along the shores, and it is a natural state of affairs where we're at with the river. The storms, the big storms kind of rip it off the bottom, and the waves bring it in, and it is going to keep happening. So again, just getting some guardrails or some guidance from this committee to give to council and direct staff on policy.
Thank you. And again, this was brought up by the town manager to see if these two committees had any recommendations for changing what was already in place. So I want to start down here and work all the way around the table.
Would it be advantageous to just read out what is already in place in the ordinance of rack line and raking?
Yes.
Okay, it's section 14.6, beach raking and rack line policy. Subsection A, the use of box blades on the beach and dunes is prohibited in an emergency and/or storm event resulting in a buildup of sand against seawalls. The use of box blade may be allowed with the approval of DEP where required, and upon filing that approval with the town manager and meeting other requirements set by the town. So this is for property owners to do on their own property, right, where they own up to the mean high water line. B, under normal circumstances, this is the existing language, the raking of the rack line is prohibited. No mechanical or hand raking may take place seaward of the rack line or within 10 feet landward of the rack line, provided, however, that hand raking of the rack line may be performed anytime to ameliorate hazardous conditions, such as removal of sandcastles or filling in of man-made holes on the beach. The town manager may approve the raking of the rack line conditioned upon prior approval by the DEP if it is determined that excessive accumulation of natural or other debris caused by extreme events, including but not limited to red tide, red algae bloom, or storm-carried debris are present. Should such excessive accumulation be determined, the town manager may approve raking consistent with the authorization given by DEP. Any such raking which will result in the unreimbursed expenditure of town funds in excess of currently budgeted funds shall first be approved by the town council. If this occurs during turtle season, May 1st to October 31st, the raking must be in compliance with the specific conditions in subsection 14-6. So these are really the regulations. It goes on more so. This is more for private property owners and the resorts, for example, that are able to get a permit for raking. So I just wanted to read that to kind of give you what the baseline is in there. I think I don't know, Dave, why you were asked the question, but I think from what I'm seeing, it's the town manager is looking to see what you all think about what would constitute excessive raking, when it should be occurred, are there turtle conditions, et cetera, things like that to consider.
He requested this because he received numerous complaints about the algae on the beach. And I said, yeah, we'd put it on an agenda and address it. And it specifically asked if we needed to change our algae raking policy on the beach.
Yeah, so I think this is very specific to algae accumulation and not necessarily raking in general.
Right.
Right, so the 8th Elton block is a little bit of a special case because you will get maybe around the shore, 1,000 feet that wide, et cetera. But the complaints there were more driven towards the inlet that formed during Ian, and that algae is just kind of sitting in that inlet.
It doesn't naturally.
It may wash in and not
naturally
necessarily
wash out.
right.
I understand.
It may or may not. Just kind of depends on the moon, depends on the tides, depends on the wind. It's all dynamic. So, they, and I'll just, there's a general sentiment that it's smelly there. I personally have not observed it smelling much different from anywhere on the beach. Whenever we did get a lot of complaints, there was a fish kill over in Laguna Channel and the wind was blowing east, and there was a bad sulfur smell. And I did notice a spike during that time, that there was complaints. Now, you know, I may be a little bit more tolerant than others of what, you know, what is a natural smell versus a unnatural smell, or, you know, a intolerable smell, I should say. But you know, a mud flat, it smells like a mud flat. It's a, you know, it smells like it's supposed to smell. And whether algae's in there or not, it's going to smell like a mud flat.
Okay, so, again, can we start at this end and then come around and let everyone have a comment?
In reference to the email that was sent out by Amy Baker, part of the concern for this particular, down in Carlos Point, was the depression that was left down there, and that was the concern, where it's coming in but not going out. Now, is that all because of the beach reclamation that we did, and that's a settling pool that's there? Because I drove by it the
No,
other
sir.
day, and I see that, no?
No, so what happened there is after Ian, we had that lagoonal feature down south, and that lagoon fills up with water, and water finds at least past the resistance.
Right.
So it scoured from that lagoon towards the bridge, and it was a huge depression from the lagoon all the way to the bridge. With the emergency permitting, we were able to put in sand above the mean high water. We were not able to put in any sand below mean high water. So we filled in where we could legally, but we had to leave that inlet. So it's not a consequence of the renourishment, but it was left there unfilled due to permitting and authorization limitations.
Well, with that being said, it doesn't have a way to get out, so the question being, should it be cleaned? Absolutely, because it's only gonna stink for the residents right there, right?
It does go out. It goes in.
It does go
in
out?
the high.
Okay.
in the
I'm
low-
just reading
it
the
goes
email.
in
I
in the
knew
high
nothing about
tide,
this.
It goes out in the low tide. I mean, I see it every day. And
Okay.
it's dry when it's low tide from my lanai.
Okay.
But the fact that we had so much sargassum, even when the town came and got rid of it 3 weeks ago at Island Sand in that pond area, I mean, because it was blocking the water from going in and out, and I'm talking, walked through it. It's like a foot deep, and then it goes out. I swear, like 13 feet out. It's just awful.
Right.
But anyway, so they took it out, right? Look out in the water. There's a whole bank of it out in the water still that's going to come in, and did. I mean, it's really. I hope it isn't it doesn't have any toxins in it. But anyway, the smell is atrocious, and the last few days it's been so hot anyway. You kept your doors shut, but if I opened them for a second, the smell coming in is awful. It's awful.
Sam, do you have anything?
Just briefly, I want to, Chad's assessment is correct. I live on Buccaneer Lagoon, and we did have a problem there for a while. The smell is gone. Even when there were dead fish, the birds were still eating, so I don't think there was poison in the water. There is a slight mucky smell at the very entrance to the canal. Other than that, it seems to have cleared up.
Ted?
No comment.
John?
No comment. Thank you for the opportunity.
Okay.
I was just curious if anyone had a chance to look at the permit in the packet from, that our town manager signed back in January of this year. If not, then maybe we can request that the town staff send it to all of us. It's very interesting, and talks about the best practices for our beach, and it's our field permit and conditions, beach cleaning permit conditions for all other counties, the CCCL, best management practices for protection of shorebirds and seabirds and chicks and nests, and it was signed by our town manager. So my only suggestion is to just follow the permit that we already filed with the state. These are state conditions.
Where is that permit? I don't remember seeing anything like that.
I can get it.
Okay.
I can get it to the committee. It is posted with Amy Baker, but
Okay.
Okay. Todd?
Nothing at this time, thank you.
Well, I went to a class over at the college in April, and it was talking about algal toxin. And so it is a sensitive issue. It's working towards Alzheimer's disease. It's making dolphins very sick with Alzheimer's. So the sargassum is not that toxin. It isn't.
Yeah, so there's a couple different harmful algal blooms. So you have the harmful algal blooms like red tide, or the blue-green algae where they're actually releasing a toxin. You have other algal blooms where, like we had in Buccaneer Lagoon, where we have a bloom of algae that, while it's photosynthesizing perhaps during the day and then it respires at night, the numbers of the algae deplete the oxygen to such a level that it kills fish, and that's why it's harmful, not because it released any toxin, but because it depleted oxygen levels and killed the fish. And then we have this is macroalgae, so is it harmful? Is there a fish kill happening because of it? I would say no. There's no toxin being released per se. However, when it does decompose, it does emit a sulfur smell that is unpleasant, and whenever it's a lot, it's very unpleasant. So that's the long and short of it.
I think also a concern is folks with compromised issues with their health, not just the smell, but the breathing of that causing issues as well.
Thank you, Counselor.
We're always looking for a balance between human wants and nature's needs. And I think this is a kind of a good example where we need the wreck line, we need the sargassum. It's floating algae, it's out there. Most of the time it's not toxic and things like that. It's coming in, but the fact of the matter is we're changing the environment so much, the Gulf is warmer. It's making a great environment where these algae can grow because it is fairly healthy right now. So it washes in a lot more that we're noticing different times of the year. So I think keeping things the way they are as far as what, how it is written and what we have for ordinances is the way to go. But for situations that humans have caused, like down in the 8,000 block, it's a human-caused area, right? No, it's not?
No, not human, it's Ian caused.
Ian caused, okay. So I guess not human caused. So with things that are abnormal, then I should say, those can be like a case-by-case basis, and maybe there's some type of amendment we can do where then they reach out to Chad, where he reaches out to DEP, where he can get that special permission, which is kind of already how it is.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, I would agree with, what Tom understood, and the fact is that I live in Islands End, so just, putting that out there, and that is not what we had before Ian. We had
Right.
sort of an enclosed area that we would have water gather when it was high tide, and then it would be pretty much dry during
When
low
we did
tide.
the
And
beach
so
re-
now it's, this inlet that has changed its position since the storm, and we've gained a lot of sand already, but we still have this in and out and in and out, and when the seaweed comes in, and then some of it can go out, and then more of it comes in, and so it just has laid kind of dormant. And so I think it's it's a multi-pronged issue, the fact that we have active water where we didn't have it before. And then we also have this issue which has come up, I think, for the first time since the storm, which is massive seaweed.
During beach renourishment, was there anything done specifically in that area to negate it?
No, we didn't, as you heard Chad say,
Yeah.
we didn't really qualify for sand
damage.
there. So we got it, kind of up, we got the berm, but we didn't get anything
Didn't get
else.
that. Okay, I was curious if they did anything,
Yeah.
but the berm is something, okay.
Okay. I guess my thought on it is, I have to echo what Rob said. We're always trying to find a balance. And the rack line, which is primarily seaweed, sargassum, whatever you want to call, is a food source for all of the shorebirds. It also, the algae floating off the shoreline is where all the baby sea turtles run to when they get in the water, and that's kind of protects them from everything else that wants to eat baby sea turtles. So it's and we've got a lot of it this year. I think it's because, you know, the governor has done an outstanding job the last 4 to 5 years, 6 years in cleaning up the Gulf, directing the water down through the Everglades and not down through the Okeechobee River, and turning our beaches brown with water. So I think it's some of the clearest water we've had in the last 20 years that I can remember, and even going back further than that. So I think that's part of it. Bringing this all in, I'd hate to see the town go through and clean everything up. It'd be great for the tourists, bad for the environment, but there should be some discretion where if there is a situation where we need to clean some up, maybe stagger it, do whatever, but we can't make that call. That's why we have Chad here in the position to try and find that balance and work with the residents with an eye on the environment to try and find that balance. And so my personal opinion is, I think the ordinance as written and in place and the direction given to the staff is working, and it should be complaint-driven, and I don't see any need to change. That's my opinion.
The only thing that I can add to this conversation was Chad had mentioned, we are basically one Long Island, and I hate to see the northern end treated any different than the southern end. So I assume the regulations have been made to address uniformity. So I'd like to make sure that, the southern end is treated fairly.
So the only caveat to that is our permit specifically excludes the critical wildlife area. We're not allowed to rake algae in that area. And that is an area that tends to accumulate it more often lately than not. But we are expressly prohibited from raking in that area. Right now, I'd say it's the worst of it is kind of in the 4,000, upper 4,000, 5,000 block, as you're coming, from, say, especially in like the Lanark, Aberdeen area, just north of Flamingo. It's pretty thick over there. I have gotten a complaint over there. Was it last week or maybe 2 weeks ago? It was bad up north. And I cruised the beach. I don't know if it was on a Wednesday or whatever, and it was pretty bad up north. And I'm directing the tractor to come up there and kind of help disperse it and thin it out. And then the very next day, it was not bad at all. It was like very sparse and really nothing to rake, nothing to see here, kind of thing. So you're constantly chasing it, and that's another reason why you kind of want to meet a threshold, because mobilization isn't in an instant, and if it's not a certain threshold, you can mobilize and get resources and get dumpsters already, and then it's in a different spot or maybe not even there at all. So that's another reason for that threshold, and why we monitor it for a while before we just go out and collect it. But to answer your question, Mr. Bill, or to give myself some cover whenever you're asking why am I ignoring your beautiful beach, I'm not ignoring it. I'm just not allowed to go and collect it there.
And I totally agree with that, Chad. You guys are doing a hell of a job. I support you from an environmental standpoint. But I also want to make one thing clear. The CWA is not a year-round designation, is it?
There's no caveat in our permit that says for any kind of seasonality. So I could ask that question to FDEP and FWC with regards to our algal collection permit next chance I get But
Yeah,
there's,
that would be, I think, a good question to ask, because, from my perspective and from my understanding, the CWA is not a 12-month designation. So in the periods that it is not, then I'd like to, if we do have that problem, then I'd like to have it considered for cleanup.
understood, understood.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay,
I would just like to also refer back to the permit, and it doesn't specify time on not cleaning or raking Little Estero Island, critical wildlife area. It just simply says excluding that area in the permit. So,
Well, that's fine, and when I get the copy of that permit or the document you're reading from, then I'll probably have some comments on that also. But if
Okay.
it's not a designated CWA and those periods that it's not, where it's not the critical wildlife area, then we like to have the same considerations as the rest of the beach.
okay, going full circle and coming back in. Does anyone have any recommendations that they'd like to make?
If I may, just, Eric, if you can get the photos, before we make a recommendation, I just want to see some of the photos. If you can kind of zoom in as much as you can to make that 3 wide across as big as possible, Eric. Yep, so this was earlier this year. I can't recall, or can't quite make out, but it's probably, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 block area. So if we can just scroll down, Eric, and kind of show. So we have some thicker areas there. I would say, especially on the right, it looks like that's, fairly large accumulation. Keep on going, Eric, if we can. So nothing there, then maybe a little bit more here. So that looks like it's probably in front of Leonardo Arms as we go down in front of that escarpment. And keep scrolling down. And keep scrolling down. I was just measuring the escarpment there. It's a little side job. Keep going down. So again, it's accumulated there. And another facet of this is it's, at low tide, it'll be very wide, and depending on where the tidal cycle's at dictates whether or not you can even collect it, because at high tide it may all be floating and again drifting where Mother Nature wants it. So we're also kind of limited in that regard with tidal cycles. And this morning it was super high tide. If we wanted to get out there whenever Public Works is available to collect this algae, we would have had a really hard time because it's all in the water. Keep on going, Eric, if we can. So that kind of shows kind of the worst of it. We did collect it on the 8,000 block. It was like February. We filled a few dumpsters, and then also on the 6,000 block. So if we can go to the next document, Eric.
It's Bill.
It's Bill.
Can that be used as fertilizer or anything?
They have some studies on it. I think they've looked at that, and I think they're looking at heavy metals and issues with maybe if it's used as fertilizer, whether or not that's an issue. So you can see this is 3 dumpsters. I will testify that if you sucked in air through your nose in front of that dumpster, you got pretty hard slap of smell. So I will agree that smelled, as natural as it may be, pretty strong. And then if we can go to the next document, Eric, and then we have the 8,000 block here. I think is what this next showing is going to be. There we go. So zoom in on that for me if you can. So as we're going down towards the bridge, if we can just scroll down a little bit. So here it's not too bad. That may have been finishing up, or I'm not sure what side of the collection that was, but it just kind of shows you kind of collects inside the pond there, and then it'll collect along the banks, especially as you go towards the bridge, just depending on how heavy it is. So it's just whenever it sits there, it starts to decompose, becomes a little bit slippery, attracts insects, which the birds love. So again, so a little bit of show and tell just to give y'all a little bit of food for thought.
Well, let me ask a question, Chad. Do you feel the ordinance today gives you sufficient authority and purview to go out and complete the task?
Yeah, this is more of a policy question. I mean, the ordinance, if we have a public health and safety issue as a town, we can address it and get the authorization from the FDEP. And I feel like we're compliant with the ordinance in that regard. Again, it's how, knee-jerky do we want to be? Do we want to go after it? Are we going to make this a 365-day year-round job? Are we going to go after the worst of it? Do we do it if nobody's complaining and I'm not hearing much about it, even though there is a bit of algae? Just some feedback for council is what I'm looking for.
Okay. So, anyone want to offer any opinion as far as changing anything? Going back to our town manager's question.
I will offer an opinion, but it's not about changing anything. It seems like you have the policies and procedures in place to be able to be nimble and make some decisions as you go along, not nimble?
No, I mean, right now the policy kind of sets that large threshold, and
Yeah.
So do the committees feel like they wanted us to be a little bit more flexible in that? If we do see, even if it doesn't meet that quantitative criteria of, on average a foot deep, 30 feet wide for 1,000 feet, that's not going to happen ever in that inlet area. I shouldn't say ever,
Yeah.
but it doesn't happen, even though it may be an issue. So if y'all want to offer me a little bit more, or advise council to offer a little bit more discretion for environmental staff to address issues when they do occur, again, that kind of puts the onus on me and kind of puts a little bit more highlight than.
So just using your own words, if we recommended to council that they keep the ordinance as is, but add, or at the discretion of the environmental director, to remove as he sees fit, or she, or.
Based on
based
number of
on-
complaints.
Based on complaints in the opinion, that's something in that neighborhood. Would that give you the nimbleness you need?
Well, and I would say, you brought up a couple of points, Chad, around, is it a hazard? Is it dangerous because it's slippery, somebody could trip, you can't really get to where you need to go? Or is it a health hazard? So I think those are a couple of points that could be made that, here's my discretion. I'm going to look at it and see how big of a negative impact it has, and that will allow me to make a decision about whether we remove it or not, if we have the resources to do so. Does that make sense?
And again, this is a policy document, it's not necessarily ordinance, so.
Right.
Yep, just,
I would like to see them expand the policy so that he can make the educated decision and the common sense decision to allow places like this that are never gonna meet that criteria. Yeah, I know, to meet that criteria of 1,000 yards and 1,000 feet and things like that, that I think you're a smart enough individual that you're not gonna go there just to do it and ruin the environment. So I think they should give him a little more latitude on that as far as a consideration.
I concur with that.
I would support that.
Anyone else?
Again, I would just reiterate, I would like the town to follow the guidelines of the state to protect our wildlife.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. And now we're going down to members' items, starting at this end of the table.
Nothing for you today.
I have one item. It might take about 2 minutes. Do I have permission to do a handout of a front and back, please?
Want me to hand them out, and you can go.
He's got a walk-in microphone.
Yeah.
What were these for? We're bringing this up.
The other group.
Okay.
Sam Lurie for the record. I've been working on this for about a year and a half, and I seem to be solo, so this is my group. It's regarding fireworks, and by show of hands, was anybody living here in July of 1990? Okay. Very few of you. I don't know if anybody heard it. You can Google it. It was on CNN. It was in USA Today. We had a fireworks explosion at Lover's Key of an entire tractor trailer full of fireworks. It killed 4 people. I live on the south tip of the beach with the air conditioning on, the windows closed. It sounds like a bomb going off for 20 minutes straight in my house. Shook the whole neighborhood. It was one of the worst things that happened on the island, but some of you don't know about it because you weren't here. If I announced today that I was going to, on a certain day and time, dump hundreds of pounds of debris and toxic waste in the Gulf 200 yards off of Lynn Hall Park, I would lose my captain's license, I would be fined thousands of dollars, and I would face jail time. Yet we hire a barge twice a year and pay for this destruction. It's about the where and the how. Where is the sensitive wildlife area that surrounds our island and nearby waterways? How is that the fireworks display is launched from a barge that we pay to pollute our waters? What is the U.S. Coast Guard, FWC, and Lee County Sheriff's stance on this twice-a-year pollution and disruption of wildlife? Do they just look the other way twice a year? There has never been a fine or enforcement of any of this. Birds vacate their nests. Other wildlife on land flee. Human hearing is damaged. We have a lot of regulations to enforce the environment and wildlife, yet this goes on twice a year. Does anyone know how this affects dolphin echolocation or turtle nesting? I certainly don't, but I'm assuming that it has some effect on dolphin echolocation. So what I handed out to you was a couple emails that I sent to Town Hall, or to Town Council, a year and a half ago, and then again a year ago. If you look on the back of it, you're going to see a list of names. Some of your names are on it. They're good names. I spoke at many council meetings on public comment on the subject of fireworks with no response from council other than fireworks are patriotic. Mayor Dan Allers did respond to my email saying they would explore options in the future, but that response was over a year ago. This July 4th, fireworks display is scheduled and paid for thanks to the Whale and Mike and Don Miller for our 25th United States celebration, but we need to make changes going forward that are environmentally friendly, but also provide an exciting show. Maybe a laser or drone show or something original to start a new tradition to replace this disgrace with something better for July 4th and New Year's Eve. On your handout on the back is a list of prominent environmentalists. If you know somebody on the list, or if you are somebody on the list, that's Chad, Chris, Dave, Rob should be on there, Jennifer's on that list. Please start the discussion. Let's not just talk the talk, let's walk the walk. Even if it's not totally popular, we need to bring up this topic, make some changes. Otherwise, this whole committee is just a bunch of hypocrites. We need to take some action. Thank you.
Sam, let me speak to that to a certain extent. When we discussed the fireworks at the budget meeting in September, I did bring up your concerns and asked about the cost and the feasibility of a drone. And I was given it was pretty much more, just as expensive, if not more, than what the fireworks were. So I tried to address it. Having seen a drone show recently, I was quite impressed with it, to be honest with you. I was skeptical when you first brought it to me, because knowing that there had been an accident up in, I believe, Orlando at one of the theme parks where a child was hit with a drone that went out of control. But I think it's, again, to your point, I think it's something we need to explore further and harder. So I agree with you. Thank you.
Thank you, John. There's 10,000 injuries every year from fireworks and an average of 10 deaths every year. And like John said, the technology is getting better. People are transitioning, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can just look around and maybe we can find something that's just as good. We want the people to come to the beach for those holidays.
Sam, I want to point out, I'm not on the email list, by the way, so please, I've got a different email than everybody else. I'm a .gov.
You weren't on council yet.
I thought this was just this year. Oh, okay, apologize. I have brought this up as well, and in actually speaking with the Millers, with Dawn specifically, she's such an asset to this island, and they both do so much in support of the island. I don't think that that's something that it would have to be fireworks, and that it could be, because I know for a fact that Dawn can't actually enjoy her own fireworks because her animals get so upset about it. So if we can do a drone, or I've seen some of the drone shows now are just absolutely remarkable. I would absolutely be in support of that, of an alternate to fireworks. So.
Sam, I can tell you, we can put that on an agenda, as an agenda item on the MERV committee, discuss it, and take it forward to the town council.
Thank you, Dave. I was reluctant. I wanted to do this at our last joint meeting with the captains, but there was no time. I was reluctant to bring this up today, only because the Millers, they put a bunch of money and time in this. Dawn and Mike, they're great for this community. I didn't want to, I don't want to have anything to do with delaying or canceling this 4th of July, but going forward, I just wanted to bring it up now so that we can look at it in the future.
I just want to say thank you to everybody for being here and having this joint session. I think it's been very helpful, and I have appreciated hearing everybody's points of view. So thank you.
Ed, starting with you at the end, anything? Okay, Jennifer?
Yes. So I handed out, I don't know if I have enough packets for everyone, but I tried to hand out some photographs a few weekends ago. This island's got a lot of construction going on, and there are many responsible construction sites where they have the fencing around the construction site to prevent garbage and things blowing around. We are getting into hurricane season, and we are getting into rainy season. And unfortunately, there was, I was walking my dog very early in the morning. We have a ramp on my street, and it's a public boat ramp on my street, and I was picking up garbage that was blowing into our water, and my hands were full, and I was really, really concerned, and I thought, oh, maybe a raccoon got into a garbage can, because that can happen. Later on that day, I was wanting to go and inspect to see if there was maybe someone who left, and there was maybe garbage, a garbage can tipped over. So, but what I ended up finding was a construction site that didn't have the correct, had fencing, but it was all basically falling down, and a ton of garbage. The pictures don't even really show the gravity of what it was, and actually I picked up a lot of it without walking onto the property, but anything that flew into the street and into our waterway, it's it's really concerning me because every piece of garbage that ends up in our back bay is a problem. So I would like both committees, because I know that the Anchorage Committee cares about our water, backwater and our water quality. I know that MERF cares about it, and I know the town cares about it. So I guess what I'm asking is that the committees maybe put this on an agenda item to discuss how we can help town council and the town staff with this. Thank you.
Okay. Todd?
No, I have nothing.
So I just have one little show and tell. This, we had to chop a teeny bit of the sea grape area to get our pool equipment working, okay? And so they took the sharpest stuff they had. This is from sea grapes. I just want you to see how dense this is and how the reason that the sea grapes survive the hurricane is because of this root. It's the strongest thing you ever saw. And I know Rob explained to me something about the salt water. It's too dense, so the salt water can't get in, right?
Filter, like a filter.
It filters it, yeah. So it's, I just want you to know, that's the reason this, in my opinion, that must be the reason that this is a protected species. And it stood up on our side of our property with no damage because of the hurricane. So that's it. It's really messy, but
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Rob?
Yeah,
Brownie.
Sharon, too. I know we talked about it a little bit before. I just, again, not just with council, I didn't mean to call you guys out to ask the mayor and stuff, but everybody who's listening, who's here, start making calls to the sheriff to get more people out here. The more calls, the more they're gonna do it. I also wanted to shout out to the Marine Mammal Rescue Team that helped with the manatee rescue yesterday. She is up on her way, or she is at Tampa Bay now. Hopefully we'll be okay, but if anybody was interested, there was a lot of bystanders and things like that. So, yeah, just really got to start getting on that speed.
Okay.
And Rob, thanks for bringing it to this group and to our attention. I don't know that it has to be the mayor, but I think I will work with the town manager. Maybe Curtis can get involved. Maybe the new emergency service director will bring on board. Maybe when we introduce him, we can all sit down and discuss it. John and I probably could be there as well. But thank you for bringing that forward, and we'll get that addressed.
No, thank you guys. And I don't mean just the mayor. I just know, titles have power, and, the mayor calls the sheriff. It, pulls weight, just like you guys with more than me, and you know what I mean. Thank you.
The beauty of what you're saying and what we're doing, if we can get people out here, is that 37 years in law enforcement. I was a supervisor for many years, and when you get those phone calls, speeders, well, guess what? In the neighborhood, it was the neighborhood people. We start knocking off these people that actually live down here, they'll spread the word faster. And the rentals are what they are. And like I said, and like you said, that they're just not that educated, or they're actually very polite about it, and they're very accommodating. But the residents are the ones that are the issues. So, but that spreads like wildfire. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. I have just a couple of things. One, just a housekeeping issue. I'd like to remind all of the members on the committee. Oh, Bill, before I go, do you have anything?
I'm good, but thanks for asking, Dave.
Okay. Just a little housekeeping issue. I would like to remind all the members on the MERF committee that we take a vote every meeting to determine what we want to advise the town council on. And that is what either myself or the vice chair or whoever is designated goes forward and talks to the town council, advising them as to the results of our last meeting. So please keep that in mind. If you're going to go up, it should be something we voted on, we've elected, or we've told someone, yeah, you're going to go up in front of the town council, and here's what we voted on. Secondly, again, I would like to echo Chairperson King and thanking members of the Anchorage Committee for being here. I think it's really good to get the committees together on not every meeting, but on a regular basis, because there's such a diverse group, but we're all concerned about the waterways. And I think it's a great sharing of information and cross-thinking of everyone here. So I would strongly encourage us to do this, going forward when the need arises, or even just to do it as a joint session. And with that, that's all I had. So.
Chair Dave and Chris, excuse me, but where can people get a copy of the Mary Torgerson No Wake map?
I know that it is posted, I believe that it is posted on the Chamber's Water Quality
Hand that down to
Nonprofit
Sam.
site. So the Chamber has a nonprofit dedicated to water quality, and I believe Jackie Lezick has posted it there.
And I have a couple other extra ones I can hand out if somebody would like them.
But for the people who aren't here to touch
Right.
one physically, I believe that is where you can find it.
We gave them away at the Cruiser Appreciation Day. I brought 100 maps and I had less than 30 at the end of the thing over, and they went like hotcakes. So then, yeah, you can keep that. I can make more.
Are these being handed out to the marinas?
We have not handed any out to the marinas. Normally, they are handing out their own maps to the boaters, I believe. Or
They are doing that, but
Is it
I
something
don't
we could-
believe it has the speed limits and things. This is a more detailed, this is probably something that,
Can we put it on the Fort Myers Beach website so it could
well,
just be
that too,
downloadable?
but at least the
printable?
The
rental
town website?
properties.
Yeah, we can
should
make that
have this.
recommendation, we can talk about that.
What we're planning on doing is, and Mary is the one taking the lead on this, but she's working to develop an app so that you can put an app on your phone that will have that right on your phone. So if you're renting, you say, here's an app, click this in, and it'll give you the map so that every renter has one, just like a Waze app on your phone. This will be a Back Bay app that everyone can see. And you can also, if they can do it right, tie it in so that it flashes saying, you're going too fast.
It'll be geolocated, yeah.
So, at any rate, that's coming down the line. But yes, this was kind of the first stone knives and bearskin attack on it, and we hope to get a little more 21st century going down the line. Okay, with that, Chad, do you have anything you'd like to update?
So we have the truck haul project starting end of this week on the 15th. Hopefully, if we get all of our documents signed and issue that notice to proceed. That is going to be first starting at the Dakota access. We'll also be using the Sterling access to minimize disturbance to a snowy plover nest that's in the area. So there'll be kind of more of a circular pattern rather than everything concentrated at that Dakota access that's near that snowy plover nest. It's going to be about a 30 to 45 day project, and bring in some sand to reconstitute some elevation, dunes in front of or seaward of the vegetation line, as well as filling in some scour low-lying areas that we have out on the beach. Vegetation is going to be getting to earth balance, and hopefully we'll be getting some plantings in soon. We're going to get the FDIM extension signed off on by council shortly, and good to go with that. And yeah, I think that's all I have for now.
Okay. Curtis?
Alrighty, so the Morning Field operations team is in the process of moving from our trailer into our new permanent office. It is now going to be underneath the Harbor House, along the side, adjacent to the, or alongside the parking lot underneath the bridge now. So if anybody remembers where the old office was before Ian, it's going to be on the back side, directly behind that office. So we have finished painting. Now we're building out the office now, so we are doing that as we speak right now. So hopefully, I would say about a week or two, we'll be permanently moved in. So we are very, very excited about that. As for the mooring field itself, off season has set in. We're kind of averaging around about 35 boats in the field right now. I'm looking to see that number increase this weekend. I have a group of about 12 vessels coming in. They're kind of coming in together. So we're happy to house them here for a little while. So that'll get our numbers up a little bit more. I have about roughly around 10 vessels in the front anchorage and about between 15 to 18 vessels in the back anchorage right now. And we have been cleaning pennants and all the systems that have been that were occupied during the busy season. We have gone through and we're cleaning the systems and everything like that now. But that's all I have right now.
Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is our MERF award, which, public comment, I'm sorry. We have a public comment. Anyone that would like to say something? Please. Please state your name for the record. There's a microphone right there.
My name's Craig Stevenson. So I wanted to comment on the ferry and water taxi. So as someone that's a waterman and is on the water all the time, the biggest issue is the no wake zone. We've pulled out 2 sea turtles. I've seen 2 manatees hit by boats. The main issue is, to your map, it's a slow, right? How fast is slow?
No wake.
No, that's not definition. That is not no wake. No wake is no wake. Slow is not no wake. So that needs to be clarified for your water taxi, to the point that I forget the gentleman made it, but if people are racing up and down to move people around, that's going to create, to his point, environmental hazard. All right. The other thing is you got to think about the displacement of the boat, right? You got a 20-ton boat that's 40 feet long, diesel, right? They're not going to be able to see a sea turtle or a manatee. That boat is way too big to be going to South Island. You know what I mean? There's a lot of other details that I think you guys have missed on kind of the parameters of, like, if a water taxi isn't going to make any money taking people from the mooring field and, that's not a business. So you're kind of throwing the baby in with the bathwater with the ferry and the taxi differentiator. That's up to the operator. It should be free economics of, like, whoever's going to do it, whatever's going to make sense for their business. But for an environmental standpoint, the size of the boat really does matter. You know what I mean? And the displacement. I've been in Fort Lauderdale. I've been in St. Augustine. I've been in Boston. I've been on the top of a mast as the Boston ferry's gone by, and I'm going 20 feet in each direction. It's only 30 feet long, but it displaces like 30 tons. So those are kind of the things that I think the committee should really be focusing on, are those idiosyncrasies. And also going back to the enforcement, that could be very, very simple. You get a license to have a ferry or water taxi, it's the same in my opinion. But if you get 3 violations from the Coast Guard, FWC, or the sheriff's, license revoked, that's your enforcement. And then going back is like, we don't have any enforcement. We're out there every day. I have coffee and I see a boat speed by. Every single day we've reported it. Nothing happens. Boaters under the influence, oh, that's an issue, right? And if you're adding more commercial traffic, you know what I mean? That's, you know, there could be a captain with a captain's license, but if they're 6 sheets of the wind, that's going to cause an issue. So those are some idiosyncrasies I think that people just haven't really thought about. That I just wanted to bring up for the benefit of the island, really, is that I think you need an enforcement aspect, and I think you need to really think about the size of the boat.
Okay.
And then also, are these ferries, water taxis going to be able to use public docks? You know what I mean? That's an issue because that's controlled by the city. If it's private, that's private. You know, what happens if you know, someone takes out a piling because they're not very good at driving? That's city property. Yeah, they have insurance, but that causes all sorts of other problems.
Okay.
The amount of trash. And this is the other thing is, I think the ferry and water taxi is being singled out, whereas the charter boats we currently have, they're breaking sound violations, they're breaking wake violations. You know what I mean? I see it on a daily basis. The Salty Sands, people that drive the boats, they don't know wake. They're playing slalom through the mooring field. I see it on like all the time. So the regulation just needs to be enforced before you create more regulation for the water taxis. I think the mechanism should be, like, if you get 3 violations, your license is pulled, simple.
Okay, thank you.
I'm
Comment,
not done.
please. Sir,
Sorry, going on to the algae, to this young lady's point, is you guys don't regulate the amount of fertilizer that's put on any of the grass. You know what I mean? That's all runoff, and that's what's causing your algae problem. And you can back me up on that. So, you know, oh, more is better, you know. Well, no, more isn't better, especially into the canals, because the canals don't have the water flow, and that's all contributing. It has nothing to do with the estuary. That's naturally regulated. And thank you for the fireworks ordinance. My boat almost burned down from a fireworks in Jacksonville.
sir, before you leave, please. Very good comments. Did you say, did I misunderstand? Did you say there's no definition of what a slow vessel is?
That's correct.
I would refer you to FWC regulations where it is clearly stated what a slow vessel operation is and how it's defined.
Yeah, I've read it, sir.
Okay.
So
you know the one that exists.
It's ambiguous. So all right, since you know the regulation, let's hear it.
It means
for the
that,
record.
it means if your bow is elevated by any means, you're going too fast to be under slow regulations.
Okay, so that applies to a pontoon boat?
That's what
not elevated, but still wake?
That is exactly what the regulations is. I'm just saying what they are. I'm not saying if they're right or wrong. I'm saying that it does exist and there is a clear definition.
I
For
would
the record.
disagree. That's a clear definition because
Thank
I'd be
you.
going 30 knots with my
Thank
bow.
you. Thank you.
You know, I can get into the regulation if you want, but the point being is it's not enforced.
Sir, you've had your five, you know, it's
3
not a
minutes, I thought.
debate. It's not a debate. It's, you
I'm
get
not
the.
debating. I'm just saying that this is an issue I think you guys should be aware of.
Okay,
Well, I think
thank you.
what we've clarified here is that we need to get more enforcement, which does not fall under our privy. We need Lee County sheriffs to step up a little more, Coast Guard and FWC for a lot of those things. So, and as you heard from this meeting, that was our #1 problem.
Okay.
So, we
Is
pointed
there
it out our
anyone
whole
else
meeting.
that would
Thank you.
like to have public comment? Okay, hearing none, I will close public comment.
Sam has something to say.
I'd just respond real quick. And I'd like to ask Curtis it's my understanding that slow speed is the minimum you can go and still establish control of your vessel. And maybe Curtis has something better on that.
That's idle.
That's
Yeah.
Idle speed, no wake zone is clutch ahead. You put your engine in gear. You cannot go any faster than that. That is idle, no wake. But slow speed is varied, and I've talked to a Officer Nice with the LCSO. They have a hard time regulating the slow speed, because the slow speed varies for every single vessel. A dinghy slow speed is different from a trawler slow speed. A Nortex vessel slow speed is different from a sport fisher. You know what I mean? So there is not a precise definition that will outline exactly what slow speed and exactly the recommendation or the guidelines that the law enforcement can enforce it. They're having a very, very hard time with holding people accountable because it's not identified.
It's taught very clearly in captain school, and I think it's the way that it's defined in captain school and the way that the words I thought were when I read them is slow speed means no white water in front of your boat. And the reason it's stated that way is because, like you're saying, every vessel displaces the water differently. Every motor pushes the boat differently. So slow speed, it means, and I've always learned it, and as I teach others, no white water in front of your boat. And then the next one is idle, going down. And that's where you maintain control, which can be different because under idle then, you could have with wind and things like that. But that's how I've always understood it, and that's how I teach, and that's how captains school teaches it.
Absolutely, yes, you're not wrong. I was just stating the conversation that I had with Mr. Nice, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Reeling it back in again. Okay. The next item is our Murph Award, and I had a name, but I'm going to table it in the interest of time until our next meeting. Is that
Agreed.
okay?
Yes.
Okay, Bill?
Nope, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, then we will go, our next meeting for Murph will be June 10th here at the Town Hall at 10 a.m.
And ours is June 22nd at 9 a.m. here.
And that brings us to the end of our agenda. And I will
Make a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
And there's a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. It is
Thank you, everyone.
22.
It is 12:22, and we are adjourned the joint session.